Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture, and we got another solo album review of the newest project from Lizzo Special. I'm not sure when the discourse about Lizzo became exhausting, but by the end of 2019, I was sick of it. And no, it's not just because of the backlash I got to my review of 'Cause I Love You back in 2019, where it became obvious that her label had an extraordinary talent on their roster, but also no proper idea how to best utilize her, which led to painfully rough production and content where the focus on empowerment never felt truly convincing for me. Part of this was driven by how I had heard Lizzo's more complex and interesting underground rap material on Lizzo bangers years before Ricky Reed got a hand on her image, wherein cranking up the bombast to compensate, it felt increasingly plastic to me. Words of affirmation that even if you turn up the volume, it kind of felt a bit hollow. That is to say nothing about how her response to even mild criticism was very revealing. 2019 featured a lot of acts taking potshots at critics that often missed the mark, but Lizzo stood out to me and made me wonder whether Lizzo's mainstream momentum was as solid as it seemed to be. The industry certainly seemed to like her. She won a bunch of Grammys that year. 'Cause I Love You made a lot of year-end lists. The radio has gotten on board consistently, but her streaming has always been kind of shaky for a mainstream pop star that we're being told is major and ascending and has a lot of groundswell. But then there was Rumors in 2021 with Cardi B, where it seemed built to do big numbers, and well, I didn't really care for it. It seemed set up to do well, and yet by most metrics it was a failed lead-off single, a ham-fisted song that the public didn't really embrace and didn't make this new album. That, alongside with a frankly stacked list of producers and collaborators for the project, gave me the impression that whoever was backing Lizzo is not going to let this fail, and they were going to ensure it's a big damn deal. Especially once About Damn Time caught fire on the radio, basically having the run that Juice should have had back in 2019. Sure as hell would have liked it a lot more than Truth Hurts, an utterly obnoxious song that gets worse every single time I hear it. And watching the split between some critical rave reviews and, let's be charitable and say, a more mixed public reception kind of had me skeptical on how well this would do. So what's special about Special? Well, honestly, less than you might think. And that's what makes talking about this album just as frustrating as the last one, but in a slightly different way. Because by many metrics, it is an improvement. It's more tuneful, there's less obvious flubs. The production as a whole is a fair bit better by leaning into some vintage and slightly more organic soul and disco that worked in moments on 'Cause I Love You. But this is also an album that feels more like the label is structuring it not to fail. And they've done so by stripping away a lot of the wild flair that was kind of part of 'Cause I Love You's general appeal. And while that flair didn't really work for me 3 years ago, I was hoping to see it refined, or hell, maybe embrace more of the tightness and introspection of Lizzo bangers, not peel away layers of personality that were already there. Now, the general public might not pick up on some of the label's machinations behind the scenes here, mostly because Lizzo's personality and general appeal has not really changed all that much. She's still a flamboyant presence that would more often overpower the mix with capricious bombast and a lot of attitude, rather than play for subtlety or nuance. A decent enough melodic rapper, but leaning a lot more heavily on singing this time around. The sort of performer who, by her very presence, wants to make it clear that if she can make it in this prejudiced industry, anyone can. So that means stacking up the mix of the empowerment anthems, the dance jams, the sex songs, all of which place her identity as a big black woman as a foundational element more than ever in the content. Something that really was more omnipresent subtext than outright text on the previous projects. It's a tone setter right from the very first song, The Sign, openly confrontational, daring the audience to challenge it explicitly, but Lizzo's been in the industry for over a decade at this point. She's older than I am, so boiling down so much of her talent and skill to proclamations of identity and empowerment, it does feel a little like notes from a label who want to utilize what is guaranteed to work at the most basic level possible in terms of relatability, And you know what? Alright, forget Lizzo bangers for this point. She's not going back to that. So much of the humor and unique reference points lyrically from her last album are just gone now, outside of just references to identity. There's nothing with the character of Jerome or even Truth Hurts. And when you lean on the raw basics with increasing clunkiness, not only does it start feeling increasingly bland, but also less convincing of its confidence. It's not an issue with cuts like About Damn Time or Everybody's Gay that are just trying to be dance jams, and there's a certain sweetness behind the closer Coldplay with the Chris Martin sample that feels a lot more lived in and personal, but those are the exceptions. A particular note is how Lizzo frames her weight across this album, where there are reference points deliberately to folks accepting all of her and how it makes her feel on Naked and To Be Loved Am I Ready. But on the title track, she references the conflict she had online when she was trying to lose weight and kind of got canceled for it. And moving aside how internet drama and canceling doesn't tend to lead to good music, the intended point here is that folks should just accept her no matter what she is. But the lack of nuance coloring that sheer bravado, or not examining why she might have been compelled to try, feels kind of simplistic, boiling it all down to nebulous haters that she clearly will not abide. And yeah, it's empowerment anthem pop music. It doesn't need to get complicated. But I'll bring in my 3 Ps for great political art. Just raw power doesn't always work without precision and populism. Now, some might interject by saying that, of course, by making aspirational material, it's gonna be populist. But building off my point with the last album, I'm not sure that's consistently true. More often than not, it feels like Lizzo is making music to empower herself and maybe her crew, rather than anyone and everyone. Look at songs like the brash reintroduction of The Sign, or how Grrrls run on dancing like CE hoes and dated Lorena Bobbitt jokes. Or for as much as Lizzo references a lot of self-possessed flair, on If You Love Me, it exposes just how fragile it all feels if she doesn't have the right people around her. Or hell, how she still feels the need to take pot shots at critics in this album cycle on social media. And when it's all presented full force, all the time, with even less introspection or nuance that digs into Lizzo's own unique story, what makes her special, independent of everyone else, especially when it has some of that lingering Ricky Reed plasticity, that label touch. If you're not part of the target audience explicitly, it can feel a little hollow. But alright, whatever. For those for which the empowerment content doesn't consistently work, there's still an audience for those who want to coast by on braggadocious ego for simple flair and fun. And Lizzo's proven to be pretty good at this. About Damn Time might be Juice Part 2, but it works on the exact same sample, principle, and flair, and the album would be smart to double down on it. And you know, to her credit, there's a decent number of examples of that. The crisp 80s disco of Everybody's Gay, the splashy horns, they're not bad on Special or Birthday Girl, even if they sound a little cheaper than they should. The same complaint I have about some really dicey percussion and compressed vocal mixing on The Sign. And you know, getting Mark Ronson to produce the liquid soul of Break Up Twice, that was absolutely the right choice. Even if Yola could likely do this song in the soulful smolder of If You Love Me a Very Bit Better, and I can't shake the feeling that Lizzo absolutely would break up with someone at least twice. And you know what? In a great choice for the closer, Coldplay augments its Chris Martin sample from Yellow with a very prominent and very obvious flip of Sudden Death by Quelle Chris and Chris Keys. And for me, as I know the song, it's a bit ham-fisted, but Lizzo is a great fit over top of it. It's probably my favorite song on the album, so I will take it. I appreciate it as a closer. But that's only a significant chunk of the album, and we encounter the other problem carried over for 'Cause I Love You, where the project is very content to lean on Lizzo's voice to carry the majority of the melody and leave the rest of the songs feeling kinda undercooked, even if it's a bit more budget evident from all the Max Martin credits this time. The cheap-sounding trap pop of Grrrls, or the chalky new wave and chintzy organ of To Be Loved Am I Ready and I Love You Bitch, they stand out as issues here. But the larger problem might just be that even in the moments I like, the hooks don't feel as punchy or impressive or distinctive. The sort of plastic pop soul and new wave that could be given to any number of modern pop acts in 2022, rather rather than something that helps reinforce Lizzo's unique identity as a musician. Hell, she only gets to use her flute on About Damn Time once. Why not at least try to do more to help her stand out more effectively beyond just identity? Well, that's where we encounter the contradiction that leaves me frustrated and kind of cold on the majority of this album. For as much as this album will pay lip service to empowerment and personality, it's painfully obvious if you know from the choices in production and the increased generalities of the content, the labels aren't about to take a serious chance to accentuate any of them. They're going for mass appeal. For the amount of attention and money they've invested in Lizzo, this album failing was not an option, to the point where I was surprised that she was allowed to ship this without any big rap cosigns and nab the streaming attention she doesn't normally get. And for an album that leans so hard on the emotionality of identity and relatability and empowerment, to lose some of that unique flair between projects, feel even less convincing at the core? Yeah, it's a cruel irony I just couldn't escape with this. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not the target audience for Lizzo, obviously, and she's too much of a talent and there's too many decent moments to call this a total misfire. But like Cause I Love You, it's not especially good either, and if it underperforms, which in streaming it seems like it's gonna, well, that wouldn't feel very special at all. And that's a shame. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be extremely grateful. Again, I always feel at a bit of a crossroads when it comes to me talking about Lizzo, because I'm very obviously not in the target audience, but I know what this sound could be, especially as Lizzo's made music that I've really liked before. Go back to Lizzo bangers, and I know the expectations that she's not going to recreate that underground Minnesota rap sound, but what she's doing instead does not best optimize her talent when it feels like she's being jammed in a box in order to satiate a mainstream mass appeal by the broadest strokes possible, and it's not as interesting as it could be. That's kind of a shame. But yeah, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. If you have comments, leave them down there below. I'm sure happy to see where people fall on this one. But beyond that, if you guys want to get involved in helping support the channel, or hell, just maybe want to get albums on my schedule, or just argue with me directly on my Discord, link to my Patreon is right over there. Once again, don't feel obligated. Trust me, I get it. Tough times, I'll be alright. But if you want to, options available. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.